Hello and welcome to After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical, the weekly show where Tony Ortega and I discuss the articles that have been posted about Scientology and things coming out of that world over the last week, according to his reporting. Hey, Tony, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Chris, great to be here today.
Yeah. Did you want to mention anything about last week and anything that happened then?
Oh, let's just say I'm doing well and I'm working and I'm feeling good. So things are going well. That's all I'll say.
Good. Excellent. Well, I am very happy to hear that. So you did have some very interesting reporting last week, some guest articles and some other stuff. And starting with Battle Creek, which is a funny place because nobody hears anything about Battle Creek, but it happens to be a place where there was a staff member from there that I trained with when I first went and did my very first Scientology training back in the 80s. So I've always kind of known about Battle Creek, but it's never been anything significant in Scientology. But they had some fundraising stuff they were doing there that you did an article on. You want to comment on that?
Sure. I mean, you must know the place better than I do. What I've been told, one of the reasons why it's so unusual that Scientology has had this real focus on Battle Creek all these years is that it's kind of a working class place. It's not where you expect, the usual wealthy white people are located. But for some reason, Scientology's got this historical interest in Battle Creek, Michigan. And it's one of Miscavige, of course, is trying to get all the ideal orgs done at one time. So they got to raise money there like everywhere else. And so we get these flyers about their fundraising events. And this was just another one of those. And I don't know, they just seem to get sadder and sadder because it's just a small number of people. They're being begged for huge amounts of money. And I guess one thing I heard about was on this particular flyer, they highlighted a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
And I just decided that I wanted everybody to know there was a 9-year-old in the flyer, but I covered her up because can't remember if it was a boy or girl, whatever, but I covered them up so that I just didn't think that was good to put that online. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad that we've seen this over the years, that they will use these eager children to kind of guilt the parents into giving money.
Oh, very much so.
You must have seen that a lot.
Oh, all the time. And this was, and it's kind of funny because I say all the time, and yet there's a contradiction there because there are just not that many second gen kids super interested in Scientology. And I think the reason that they stand out in my memory is because when we did see it, we got so excited. And I made a note about this because I'm glad you brought it up about the child there, because I thought to myself when I was reading that article, Scientology treats kids either as distractions to be pushed aside or opportunities for exploitation and fundraising. I mean, that's, the whole idea that they are creating the next generation to salvage the world is just total nonsense, because they barely pay any attention to the kids unless the kids are bright-eyed. Oh, Scientology's wonderful. And they're like, see, it's working, And I even commented to this yesterday when I did my podcast about cults and the next generation and stuff, how badly Scientology has botched the entire next generation thing that cults often get into. So this kind of highlighted that for me. Now, this next article actually is a little bit personal to you because it was about attack ads on you from Twitter and stuff.
Yeah, I usually don't talk about that because I'm always getting attacked on Twitter. And they've also paid for ads about me in the past, particularly on Google search results. And so I tend not to talk about it because I just feel like it just helps them get the word out. You know what I'm saying? I don't like to draw attention to any of their smear campaigns against you, me, Mike, Leah, anybody.
Yep.
But I felt like I would bring this one up because it appears to have backfired somewhat. They put up a couple of ads about me on Twitter and paid apparently a lot of money because I was hearing from people that these ads were showing up like on Elon Musk's own timeline. and that they had two of them. One just had this sort of the usual, hate blogger thing. But the other one, they stole a little footage from one of my videos from the first Danny Masters trial, where I took the time one day to thank Karen de la Carriere for allowing me to stay at her house during the trial. That's how I saved a little money. It's very nice of her. How am I not going to do that? And so they're trying to make it look like there was something improper about it. Of course, it wasn't. Um, so they paid for these ads, and so they reached a lot of people who didn't normally maybe see stuff about Scientology in their feeds.
Mm-hmm.
And they were shocked. And so I didn't see the ads, Chris, because I'm blocked by Scientology. But when people would respond to them and I'm still tagged, then I would see the response. And so I was seeing all these really funny responses. And I thought, you know what? That's worth sharing with my readers. I'm really, like I said, I really don't want to bring up the attacks, but I thought the responses were funny enough that we could all laugh about it.
Absolutely. I thought it was interesting as well because it was noteworthy to me that not one of those, as you mentioned, they were paying for it. It was spread out to people who don't normally see this stuff. All of the responses to you were from people whose accounts I've never seen or heard of before. And I follow a lot of people on Twitter who kind of are into responding to those ads and trying to talk to OSA and tell them to knock it off. And I encourage them, as you do, to, hey guys, could you just ignore them? You're the only ones giving them any oxygen. But seeing how regular, normal, everyday, not connected with all of this kind of people respond to this is illuminating, because it really does prove what we talk about, how toxic Scientology's brand is out there and how people know that. I think that's worth noticing and commenting on as something positive here, in addition to what you were saying about how damn funny they were. There were some pretty good responses.
Quite a few of them said, well, you've taken this ad out against the guy. Now that I've read him, I realize I should be following him. And they started following me. So,
right.
I think it was kind of a backfire. And I thought the timing was funny too. I mean, was it the 60 Minutes thing, Australia? I don't know. But anyway, like I said, they've had ads against me in the past, but nothing like this on Twitter with such high visibility and with such a backfire. So I thought it was worth pointing out.
Absolutely. And I do think it was in response to the 60 Minutes thing, now that I think about it, because I mean, I didn't see anything on me in terms of, were you on the court TV thing? I don't think that was big enough to warrant their attention, maybe, but they really don't like the international coverage. When you go international, when you end up on big TV, big headlines, you see your name the next day on Stand League sites. It's like a little program they run. I don't know that they even think about it. I think they just do things,
Mike pointed out that he's gotten an increase in PI activity lately. Mm-hmm. So maybe, I don't know, it's related to Leah's lawsuit and Dave's freaking out, and so they're smacking, hitting out at a bunch of us. I don't know.
I think so. And of course, with Mike, I mean, they're not good people. Okay, let's just put it that way.
Well, I also had to think about that I made my announcement last month about my health issues, and now suddenly they're taking out a big ad against me. Maybe they think I'm vulnerable at this point or something. I don't know. That's I wouldn't put it past them.
No, I'm telling you, this is they're not good people. They think they are. That's what's so sick about it. They really do believe that they're doing good work. I had to laugh at one thing. Pasadena, you also included some promotional pieces that they had sent out, and I just had to laugh. How would you like this for promo? Want to get 75% more out of life? I don't even know what to think about. I mean, what? 75%? Anyway.
Pick that number, Chris.
Right? I have no idea. That was funny. Now, this is a weird, wild story that's been talked about. There's been videos made about this. Bob Ferris's story was posted in full. Do you want to talk about this? Because this is wild.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been like everybody else. I've been seeing this story develop on some YouTube channels, and I knew that Jeffrey Augustine was personally involved, and so I just sent him a message and called him up and said, "Hey, I know that people are interested in this story. You're in the middle of it. Can you put something together?" And so he and Vanessa LaRose put together this piece for me, which I really appreciate, where they describe how this woman, Liz Ferris, came forward to them saying that her, when, 20 years ago, 19 years ago, when she tried to call her father in Scientology, they had told him he was dead. And almost 20 years later, she's heard that he's actually alive at Int Base. And so she wants to see him. And so they actually went out there. So it's one of the worst disconnection stories we've heard in a long time.
Mhm.
And I'm just glad that Jeffrey's on it, and hopefully we can get some more updates. I know they'll be doing more videos, but it's not enough that Scientology rips families apart. They got to tell people that they're dead.
Oh, awful. It was
And
horrifying.
Jeffrey also pointed out an interesting parallel. Not only will they tell people that your relative is dead, but also they won't tell you when they have died. And the example he gave was the story I wrote, I don't know, 10 years ago about Annie Tidman,
Yeah.
that Annie Tidman had died of cancer, and Scientology didn't tell her family for months. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing that Scientology is so cruel that way.
Oh, horribly so. And so thoughtless. They really couldn't care less about anybody outside of their world. And so it's always a bother of one fashion or another to have to deal with stuff outside. And then the cruelty enters in. And I couldn't help but think about this with Liz's story, because from the Scientology point of view, and this is just wrong, but this is where they're at, is she's betrayed them twice, because she betrayed them leaving, and she betrayed them because she's a lesbian and out and proud, which is completely enemy territory as far as Scientology is concerned. Of course she acted that way, that one fill in the blank. That's how they talk about her. So
Right.
to them, taunting her, giving her wrong information, then actually denying her contact with her father, even though acknowledging he's there and he doesn't want to see her. I mean, this is where the cruelty really enters in. After 20 years of thinking you're one of your own parents is alive, and then finding out, yeah, but they don't want to see you. Jesus. I mean, it's really Scientology to a T. Everything wrong with it encapsulated in that story.
Yep.
Ugh, horrible stuff. Followed up with, okay, so there was also, I really like Chris Owen's writing. I'm just going to say, as somebody who has dived deep, as somebody who's talked deep about Scientology's history, this guy's impressive with the deep dives that he does.
Well, I knew I was going to be away from the website for a few days, and so I sent some messages out to some real friends, and they really came through. I mean, Bruce Hines sent me something, Sonny Pereira sent me something, Jeffrey Augustine sent me something, but Chris Owen, I mean, I asked him because I always love his pieces. He not only sent me something, he sent me a 3-part series.
Yeah.
So, and a very good one. I mean, he's inspired by Leah Remini's website. If you remember, last, I don't know, a week and a half ago or something like that, I took out some of the references that Leah's lawyers made to some of these fair game policies, and I showed people those full policies and how awful they are. These terrible, horrible rules that L. Ron Hubbard set up to destroy people, and said, "Look, this is scripture. This is holy scripture in the Church of Scientology." Well, Chris Owen, being the historian, the thorough researcher that he is, he's really diving into that, and he's showing us the full structure of this retaliation, intelligence operation that Scientology has that operates fair game. Perfect timing for this lawsuit. I actually, I heard from Mike. Mike was really happy that Chris is doing this right now. So, Yeah, just I really owe it to Chris that he's given me that. And the second one's popping up Monday morning, I think, when you put this out that day. And then there's a third part later in the week. So just really, really good stuff.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. I mean, seriously, when you want the actual facts, the actual dates, the actual policies, the actual activities, I mean, he really compiles things from all different places, and he's digging deep, going into the 1950s lectures and pulling out basic philosophical principles that Hubbard was operating on that evolved into what became fair game. And you can find it all the way back there when he's talking about ruining people utterly in the 50s and even earlier in his so quote unquote philosophical breakdowns on how he explained, basically L. Ron Hubbard explained in his lectures, his own vindictiveness. He was a very vindictive man. And when I say these things were written into the DNA of the organization, this is how it was done. And that's what I find so illuminating about Chris's writing, is he digs out all those details. Finally, and kind of most interestingly in a way, the judge recusal in Leah Remini's lawsuit. This is now, she got this judge, and now this judge has recused herself. What do we know about the connection here and why this happened?
Right. Well, it turned out to be real simple. I got the document showing that she had recused herself Friday, and she had actually filed it on Thursday. And so I very quickly put together a story. And all I could say at that time was she cited the legal code about a spouse. So we knew that it had something to do with her husband, and her husband is a attorney named David Shepper at Winston and Strong. After I put the story up, and I added this to the story as soon as I could, I heard from people that, yeah, David Shepper was on the Bixler appeal for Scientology. So the judge's husband has represented Scientology in court. And so she knows she can't, and so if anything, Judge Shepard did the right thing, and she did it quickly. She knew, why waste anybody's time? She knew that she couldn't handle this case because her husband worked for Scientology. I know that Roger Friedman was really outraged by this. I'm not sure what there is to be outraged about it. I mean, we know a lot of attorneys in LA have worked for Scientology. So yeah, some judges are going to be, there's going to be some interaction there. So I don't think it's outrageous, because I mean, the part that's disappointing is that Judge Barbara Shepard looked really good. She's held LAPD to account. She sounds like she's a very fair judge. It seemed like she was an improvement over the first judge that Leah was having second thoughts about. But, if her husband worked for Scientology, we don't want her anywhere near the case. She knows that. She took herself off of it. So yeah. I don't see where the outrage is. Now they'll select another judge, and we'll make sure that judge has no connections to Scientology. We'll probably find out about that today on Monday. So, remember, it's very early days in Leah's lawsuit. Probably going to go for years. So let's hope they get somebody good.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, very interesting. I was curious about that connection, so thanks for filling in the blanks on that one. And that was our week in Scientology this week, folks. It was, it was an interesting week. We had some good stuff happen. I encourage you to check out, I did 3 live streams in 3 days. I encourage you to check those out on my channel. And of course, you see the address there on Tony's Substack. Subscribe, get your daily notifications on your Scientology news. That's it's wonderful stuff. Tony, any last words before we end up?
I'll just give you one little hint. I have a story about Hawaii this week.
Oh.
And you're going to like it. It's fun.
Okay, cool. Hawaii. I went out to Hawaii 3 times as a Sea Org member on mission out there. This will be interesting. All right, folks. Subscribe, like, share, get it out there. And we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.